All right, let's get started. It's 11:01, and again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on Sunday once again, and hopefully today's session will be very informative, especially for those folks who is actively looking jobs. So we're gonna start today's session with Boris walking over the previous algorithm of prime numbers, and he's gonna walk you through the solution in details. And we're going to continue on the topic of the interview process. We're going to go over the preparation for interview, resume, LinkedIn, alternative resources, how to prepare for the interview. Also, I'm going to share tips and tricks how to write effective resume, not just a resume, but how to be very, selective what you put in your resume. And also we'll share on the guidelines of preparation process, because it takes time to prepare an interview and it's a piece of art to actually pass the interview itself. So I'm going to share with my experience from managerial side, because I've been interviewed hundreds of people over the course of like past 5 years, and I will share with all the secret sauce for passing interview, and also share with the failures from other people why they failed interview and how to completely omit this. Boris, can you hear me? Are you available?
Yes, I do. Hey, everybody.
Perfect. You can start sharing your screen, and I will follow your presentation.
Cool, thanks. So let's quickly recap what was the topic of the homework. We explained the two-sum problem last time, and the homework was to determine if the number is prime. So there are multiple variations of this problem, right? The lead code problem that was sent by a student into the Slack was how many, wait, please find how many primes are less than n, the input n. This is a bit, it's not even harder, but it's just a little bit different topic. So we'll just focus on the easiest version of that. Let's just start from determine if the number itself is prime or not. And then we will, a little bit later, we'll explain the technique that is called dynamic programming, and we'll explain the lead code problem itself. Cool. So let me create the Java class. I'll create prime number. It is a class. And again, for those who doesn't remember, what is prime number? The prime number is the number that can be divided without reminder only by 1 and the number itself. So let me explain. If we have 15, we definitely have multiple ways, multiple dividers of that, right? So for example, 5 times 3 is 15. So 15 can be divided by 5 and 15 can be divided by 3. So 15 is not a prime number. However, if you have a 17, then you cannot find any other number but the 1 and 17 that 17 can be divided on. So again, you cannot find any number that you can divide 17 on that number and there will be no reminder. The only two numbers are 1 and the number itself. This is prime. Primes are very popular in computer programming, especially in cryptography. The majority of contemporary like crypto encryptions are based on this concept, because there is no efficient way to find multiples of the number. Okay, so let's create a simple function that takes a number and returns if this number is prime or not. Let's recap our 8 golden rules, right? I will write them right here. So what is input parameter? What is output parameter? Let me just quickly. Cool. Great. So what is an input? Input is obviously just an int number that we are trying to determine if it's prime or not. So I'll call it is prime, and I'll expect integer here. What is an output? Obviously, we are going to determine if this number is prime or not. So our output is Boolean, true or false. If this is prime, we are going to return true. If this is false, we're going to return false. Now, the easiest way to do that is just, basically this is kind of brute force, right? But we are going to optimize it a little bit later. So we're going to check every single number from 2 to 17, actually to 16, because we obviously 17 will be a divisor for that. So from 2 to 16, and we are going to check if we're able to divide 17 on that iterator. If we can, and there is no reminder, then this is not a prime number, because we found the number that we can divide 17 at. Does that make sense? So let's create a for loop, and we are going to, for now, we're going to start from I equals 0, right? Sorry, not 0. We know that every single number will be divided by 1 without reminder, obviously. So there is no point to check 1. We can just check 2. We can just check 2. So many people did not receive a Zoom link. And lots of, I had to update and could not join. Igor, are you here?
Yes, I am here. And I mean,
Yeah.
the question is how everybody else joined. So the original, when you register for the Zoom, you should get the Zoom link, which is unique nowadays, including the password, because the Zoom is protecting all the meetings right now. So it's a unique link, and there's no like common link anymore. So if people miss that, I mean, there's nothing we can do, unfortunately.
For sure. Do we have any people in attendees room?
No, we have actually 35 people, but there is nobody in the waiting room because I admit everybody from waiting room. And whenever I see them, I admit right away. So okay. It's just basically people who cannot join simply either misplaced it on deleted email with that Zoom link.
I see. Makes sense.
Keep going, Boris.
Yeah. Cool. Great. So obviously we should start from 2. By the way, good question if the 1 is prime number, because basically the only numbers that you can divide 1 on is 1 and 1, right? So by definition, 1 should be a prime number, but mathematicians around the world just agreed on 1 is not prime number. So 1 is not a prime number. That's just a math rule. Everything further is can be checked with this simple rule. Do we have any number that we can divide our and this determines the prime or no. Great. So we start from 2, and we are going to iterate for now to the end. So basically, we're going to go from 2 to n minus 1, right? Because we don't, less than n. If we have less and not less than equal, then the last number we're going to check will be n minus 1, which is perfect, right? We want to check 16, basically. And we're going to iterate one by one. Now, the check is very simple. We know the modular division already. We worked with that last time. So that's our primary tool here. If we found the I, that n modular divided by I equals 0, this means we found the I that we know how to divide n on this I, and there will be no reminder, right? If this is true, then we found such I that is a factor of n. By the way, this is called factor. Cool. So we know exactly that this n is not a prime number right away if this is true, right? So at this point, if we found something, we can immediately return false. We can immediately return false because we know right away that if there is a one simple number that that is a factor of n, it is enough. It is enough that n is not prime anymore. We don't need to check further i's, right? We can just stop the for loop. Great. So this is even a little bit too much iterations here. We're going to a little bit do it a little bit more efficient very soon. Cool. Now, what to do if we can't find anything, any I that we can divide n on this I and get the zero reminder? Then if we went through all our possible cases and there is still no I, so we didn't return false, we can return true at this moment. So return true, right? Means we checked all i's and any I is factor of n. We're good to go. Cool. Now, obviously the runtime complexity here, we're going to discuss runtime complexity a little bit further. Our next step usually is unit tests. So let's do unit tests. Obviously, we also need to do an edge case here. What is a good edge case here? We should check n which is negative n or n which is which is 1, for example, right? So if n less than 2, basically 1 or 0 or whatever, this is not prime. So we just can immediately return false. We don't need to do any checks at this point. This is simple enough problem that we just return false right away. If this is not true and then it's greater than 1, basically 2 or more, then we need to do this calculation. So what will be the good unit tests here? Prime number test. Let me just copy the annotation that I need to write. Cool. So test prime 1, for example. Then we should create the prime number class. Don't forget to write new. This is Java, not Kotlin. And then let's say int n equals 17. We know that 17 is a prime number, right? So definitely expected result is true because 17 is a prime number. And then we should do assert basically we can just do assert true without expected result, right? The unit assertions have this assert true, which is very nice for checking that something is true. We can just check the prime number. Prime number, why can't I find this? This should be public, right? This is public. Is prime, cool. So prime number is prime from n is true. Great. So small test. This is really what we call warm-up problem, right? Developers usually warm up themselves on such problems. Very important problem, but easy enough. Let's do a couple more unit tests. We should definitely check one, because this is very special, and this is false, right? We should assert that this is not prime number. Also, let's do some false, some not prime number. Let's say we know that 36 is not prime number because 6 times 6 is 36, right? So we will assert that this is false. Let's run all unit tests. All 3 tests passed, great. Let's talk about runtime complexity here. So obviously, what is runtime complexity here? Extremely easy. Please Slack whoever knows what is a runtime complexity here. Hey guys, are you sleeping? What is runtime complexity for this simple problem? You should know it already.
A lot of students got so relaxed after.
Hey. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, big O from M, absolutely. So for now, this looks like that. However, we can optimize this a little bit. We don't need to run that far, actually. So how can we do that? How can we do that? N times N, right? So this is like, probably you don't need to know how to prove this math theory, but it's like, this is very popular question on the interviews, right? This is just a warm-up problem on the interviews. It's really important you know the fact that you can run this I not to the N, but till root square from N. Just remember that this fact. N times 2 is really good idea. So N times 2 is true, but we can optimize it a little bit even more, even square root from N, which is even less than N, right? So N times 2 is definitely true, because if you think about that, let's say we trying to understand if 10 is a prime, or like, let's do 17 is a prime. You can just check, we are checking, can we divide on 2? Can we divide on 3? Can we divide on 4? Can we divide on 5? Can we divide on 6? Can we divide on 7? Can we divide on 8? Can we divide on 9? Basically, if we checked all those and we still did not find the divisor, then it's obviously we will not find in the second half of this sequence. Because basically, for example, if you have 16, then if you have the divisor 2, then the other divisor is 8, the symmetric element from the sequence, right? So because 2 times 8 will be a 16. If this number, theoretically, we had any factors for that, one factor will be in the left part of sequence and the second factor will be in the right part of sequence. So just a fact, basically square root from N. You can do SQRT, or you can say I times I less than N, which is way better for complexity, right? Because this is totally different function. It's not square, it's anti-square, basically. It's if N square is horrible runtime complexity, then square root is very good runtime complexity, because we need only a few operations in order to achieve the task. So yeah, basically the complexity now is SQRT from N, basically square root from N. The only thing is you need to be very careful with those edge cases. For example, let's try to run right now all our unit tests. All 3 are passed. But what if we are going to do something like 2 and 3. So I just wanted to check if the 2 and 3 work for our solution. So we have 2 failed tests, right? So basically 2 is, sorry, we should obviously check that 2 is a prime number. So we are going to assert true. And 3, basically for 3, it's also true, right? So 3 can be divisible on 1 and can be divided by 3 itself. So it's also true, sorry. So it looks like everything does work. Looks like everything does work. Sorry. Yeah, looks like everything is cool. Any questions? By the way, what is what is memory complexity? Last true, right? Memory complexity. Memory time. Yeah, memory is constant here. We didn't use any memory, which is awesome. Which is awesome. Cool. Okay, that was just a warm-up problem. Again, we will not have any hard problem today because today we are going to focus on resumes and career in general. Because if you don't know how to sell yourself, then you will not even have an ability to show how good your algorithm knowledge is. So we probably can switch to resumes. Igor?
Thank you, Boris. There are some people still joining. Make sure to keep admitting them.
Yes. I'm not the host today, so probably I can.
Okay. I'll try to pay attention. Although we're
like you can give me a host. I'll do that.
Yes, I can actually. Indeed. Make a host. Okay, now you're the host. Let me share my screen. Great. Do you see my screen with unemployment rate, Boris? Can you?
Yes, we see your screen.
Awesome. All right, guys. Unfortunately, I will start with a sad information from our EDD government website, where we can see where we're at right now with unemployment rate from the information, which is IT. I would say this number probably not very precise, but probably this is the most unbiased resource you can find online. So as of today, months over change from February, March was 2,600 people, which is kind of delayed information. We're already in end of the May, early June. So I think this number, quadrupled. But what it means for all of us is that we have to basically understand where we are as a professional people right now. It means that we will have to compete with a lot of qualified or even overqualified people on the market, right? So because a lot of major companies laid off thousands of IT specialists, you will have to brush up your skills. And right now, more than ever, you have to be prepared for the interview. By any means, I don't want to scare you guys. I just want to make sure that you understand the reality where we are right now. Okay, so now we're gonna shift the gears and talk about the how to prepare yourself for the killer interview, how to prepare yourself for the successful breakthrough interview, right, in such a competitive market. So there's one video that we show in every class for all of our students. I love it so much, so it's pretty old, I would say. It's more than a couple years old. If you take Udemy courses, there's a famous dude, his name is Mark Price. He lives in Silicon Valley. He's a founder of startup, DevSlopes, and in one of his courses, he mentioned something that I keep saying to everyone, but he said it so well that, you know, I just cannot repeat what he says because it's his words, and I'm gonna play out this video so everybody can hear his message. I don't think that the audio will work. Oh my God. Yeah, because I'm on the multiple monitors. Let's see. I guess I'm not gonna be that lucky. Yeah. Anyway, because my audio is not working right now, you can only hear me, and we can hear ourselves. It's not gonna actually play out of the speaker, unfortunately. Basically, what he says that, I'm gonna paraphrase, he says that you have to focus on one thing and only one thing for at least 6 months in order to be good at this. What Mark Price is saying this, you have to, if you choose your career, right, and you try to excel it, don't try to scatter all over the place. A lot of people jumping skills from skills. They want to learn iOS, they want to learn Android, web development at the same time. They want to, if you're in testing industry, you want to learn all of the testing like Selenium WebDriver, Cypress, XCUITest, Espresso, and the backend automation. So what he says that you will never be successful if you follow this trade. You have to focus on one thing and become really good at this. Especially right now, there's gonna be a lot of professionals at something, right? So you want to position yourself as a super professional at something, right? So you want to make sure you are, develop the skill you already have and excel it instead of learn something completely new, and it will be pretty much total failure. And you not only have to learn how to stick with that for at least 6 months to a year before you shift to another thing. So you have to be so good at this, right? Whenever you present yourself, that people that interview, they feel that you are a pro at this particular thing. Okay, so basically that's what he says in the message, and I just want to emphasize that. Another important thing that Boris mentioned is algorithms, right? Algorithms are so important nowadays. I mean, like it or not, hate it or not, we haven't shifted yet to the complex problems yet. We only scratched the surface of algorithms. We are right now at the point of what we call warm-up algorithms. If you struggle with them already, my prescription, you must spend every day 1 hour, at least 1 hour, every day, 5 days a week. Obviously, you need to give your brain a break to solve these algorithms before you get a job. Until you actually get employed, my recommendation, just keep doing this, right? Otherwise, because companies right now have ability to hire best of the best, because the market is flooded with the professionals right now. Before, they used to hunt people, right? Now they don't have to do that. Now all these people available, and you have to compete with them. So you want to make sure you prepare and brush up your coding interview skills as best you can. While you solve them, time yourself. Give yourself first 30 minutes, right? If you cannot make it in 30 minutes, try to solve it, then time for 30 minutes, try to solve within 30 minutes frame, then, shut it down to 20, 15, fast you can solve them, because usually the phone screens are limited on time. They give you like, somewhat like 30 or maybe sometimes 10, 15 minutes for the quick problems. So be prepared. Another important aspect I want to talk about is a portfolio, which is very interesting. So what is a portfolio? Portfolio, I'm actually going to give an example on a test automation side, but it applies to anything, development, anything, testing, whatever. What it means portfolio, just like user experience or any web designers come to the interview with a portfolio of their websites or application they've been developing in the previous projects, or their like homework projects that they can present of their skills. Nowadays, again, in such a competitive market, you want to come to the interview not empty-handed. If you're invited to in-person, even if it's a Zoom interview, in-person interview, You want to show that you not just worked on something at your job, but you build an application to develop your skills. What it means, like for instance, when we actually have XCUITest videos on our YouTube channel, we have the underlying app. Nothing stops you to take this app. It's open, so it's right now open to the public, right? As you can see on the screen, and can continue writing tests on your own to develop the skill that you can present. You can present GitHub, you can present tests and solutions, you can present even this test running in CI by bringing your Jenkins instance or even the free version of Circle CI. So you can show a bundle, right? Here's my application, here's my test, here's the running in CI. It will definitely impress the people who are going to interview because you show them that you are very active. Besides doing your job, you can show the industry problems and their solutions. Say, hey, by the way, there is a problem right now to automating Siri. And by the way, latest Xcode released the XCUITest library, which have APIs which you can automate the Siri. They're like, oh, impressive. Can you talk more about this or elaborate on this? And you can present this as the demo. And this is very, very powerful. By the way, we in 2 weeks, we're teaching course on XCUITest. We're all going to show how to actually prepare the demos. And as an alternative result of this course, will be actually the application you can show in interviews, including the Jenkins CI and everything. It's starting in 2 weeks, and we have only 2 seats left in this bootcamp. But you can, if you don't plan to attend this bootcamp, you can. It's open. You can go right now and work on that app and create your own portfolio. Alternatively, there is like YouTube channel with Coding with Mitch. He has hundreds of very useful videos where he actually for free shares on his website an open source application which for Android, for iOS, you can build your portfolio out of his resources. If you are in development, he has advanced courses on development on Android and iOS. If you're on testing, he has amazing testing course for the Espresso architecture. This is amazing free resource on YouTube, and I always like alternative resources. You can find that for building portfolio. When you come to the interview and show something, trust me, people will be impressed. You will right away jump on top of the stack. If they say, no, we don't want to see your app, you're going to hear this, which is fine. But at least if you try, say, hey, by the way, I'm working on open source application and I can demo you some cool stuff. Do you have 5 minutes? And they're going to say yes or no. And if they say yes, you can present it. Again, if you go in-person interview, you can bring your laptop, ask to connect to the Wi-Fi and make a presentation. If not, you can do it over the Zoom. It's even easier nowadays. And be prepared when you present your baby, right? Your application. Make sure you're ready for this. You're ready to answer all the questions like, what is the architecture? You can walk through the code base. Be prepared to answer any questions about, whatever you try to present. So make sure you know everything in and out about your portfolio. Another interesting thing about preparation for, again, I'm going to emphasize on the test automation and testing. There's a lot of alternative resources. Like the biggest failure in interview, when I interview people personally, right? I ask them, do you know what's going on in the test automation industry? And people say usually yes. Okay, so the next following question for me is, do you listen to any podcasts? Do you watch any YouTube videos, or do you follow any evangelist in the industry? And people say yes, and I say, can you name a few? People get stumble. I don't know. I can ask you right now, can you name me like 3 key people in the test automation industry right now in Slack? Can anybody reply in Slack? Anybody? Give me like 3 names of the key evangelists in a testing industry that you follow. Anyone? Angie Jones is good. She presents at almost every conference. Yep. Joe Colantonio for sure. Yep. James Bagg, good. Dave Hafner, that's a big name, absolutely. All right, so great. And obviously, to know your evangelist in the industry, and especially when you follow them, you can have a very interesting conversation during an interview. You can spark an interest in your interviewer, and he or she will see that you are actually know what's going on right now, what's in trend, right? And then, for instance, speaking on Angie Jones and all the people you mentioned, not many people know there's a test automation university sponsored by Applet Tools, which is probably right now the leader in the UI automation. We're talking the UI validation using the AI. And they have dozens of courses completely free. And you can see some of them taught by people you just mentioned, right? It's right here. I will share this link with you guys right now in Slack so you can browse through. So if you're interested to brush your skills up in whatever area, Python, you see they have Cucumber with Java, automation with visual testing and Appium, Jonathan Lips, right? You name it, IntelliJ test automation engineers, you will find all these courses taught by the people you just mentioned. And this is amazing, right? This is a great opportunity to brush up. Well, here's Angie Jones. I was looking for her Java programming. I think this is great, amazing. My apology, my printer started working. So this is a great opportunity to brush up your skills on whatever topic. Here's the automation of the XCUITest for beginners, right? Introduction course, whatever you need to. There's another new university. Jonathan Lips recently joined Headspin, and they have a Headspin university that also completely free for beginners courses. So this is a great opportunity to, if you are working with Appium and would like to extend your Appium skills, he's gonna show here beginners course and advanced courses and like super advanced courses for enterprise solution. So Headspin University is here available. SOSCON. Recently, SOSCON was canceled in, it was supposed to be in Austin, but they did it completely for free online. And there's a lot of great videos on SOSCON that you can watch right now, a recording of. Great, amazing resource for the latest trends in the quality industry. Again, I'm basically trying to show you that if you would like to dive into whatever you are doing, web automation or iOS, Android, backend, AI, anything, machine learning, big data, whatever, it's all available. There's nowadays so many resources that you can follow, which is, can help you to brush up your skills and be up to date. When you are a knowledgeable person about the industry and you come to interview and they ask you, what's going on right now, guys, in the industry? And you can say, hey, by the way, I was attending the latest online conference on SOSCON and heard a great speech from Parasoft about how you can leverage Selenium and AI. I was like, wow, artificial intelligence is a very hot topic right now. What was so interesting about the presentation? I say, hey, by the way, Chris Colosimo was actually presenting a great tool, right, called Selenic, which was basically solving the industry problems such as flaky test and how to completely avoid them in the real time. And they have self-healing feature, which is actually fixed test on the fly, and you don't have to investigate why they were failing. You're like, oh my God, this is something new. It shows that you are knowledgeable about what's going on in the industry, right? And right away, you're gonna get right on top during the conversation. Either it's conversation with the interviewer as a manager or interviewer as a regular engineer, doesn't matter. You're gonna spark an interest that you are going beyond just, regular boundaries of your job responsibilities. And that's exactly who people are going to look right now for, those individuals, just beyond those regular day-to-day job boundaries. Like I said, we're in a very interesting situation right now, right? I encourage you to sign up. Somebody, I think Stella said that Joe Colantonio. Joe Colantonio is actually right now full-time dedicated to the Test Guild. He makes online conferences, free weekly podcasts. He has automation podcasts, performance, security, whatever you want. He actually has a lot of free resources I'm going to share with you right now. And again, doesn't matter what niche of the testing industry you're in right now. Okay. You can listen this in your car when you drive, around the city, or obviously right now a lot of people work remotely, or if you're unemployed right now, you can listen to your home while you're doing workout, right? I think this is a great, amazing resource on the, on the test automation. He talks to all key people in the industry on a weekly basis. You can hear his interviews with people you just mentioned, like Simon Stewart, Jason Hoggins, Jonathan Leibs, Dave Hafner. He talks to all of them, right? Which is amazing information to know what's up in the industry. Let's move on to something that is probably why here everybody on today's session is the resume. A long time ago, Boris actually introduced me to this website, which is this blog post. Sorry, blog post was done in October 16th, 2018. It's 2-year-old, right? However, this blog post is something that I've been preaching for a long time for all the students, all the followers, and just people who turn to me for help in terms of resume. Okay, guys, I'm gonna make a very strong statement right now, which is probably gonna hurt some feelings. 99% of resume that they see, they simply are terrible. Like the worst resumes that I ever seen in my life, 99%. And trust me, I am hiring on a regular basis, DevOps, IT ops, engineers, QA. I mean, I'm engineering manager, so I actually go through hundreds of resumes, and 99% of resumes that they see, they're terrible. They're usually done like fast-handed, like somebody had 5 minutes, brush up something, and this is a total failure because the good resume is actually is described in this blog post. By the way, I'm going to share that also with you. Supposed to be very, fulfilling within 1 page. I don't want to read, 100 pages of your 20 years experience, which is already irrelevant. Even your 6-7 years experience that you've done like, in 2013 is already most likely irrelevant. Okay, so you want to focus on your most recent skills that I want to see in my job description. And the guy who wrote this, his name is Terrence Kuo. He actually goes through very important points, which I emphasize, and I love this. I keep sharing with students, with everyone. This is amazing, amazing resource I'm going to share with you right now. And I'm going to go through very key, important points of this post. Give me 1 second, I'm going to share in Slack. So very important thing about resume, it has to be 1 page, and it has to focus on most important information that your interviewer or HR or whoever review a resume or recruiter can actually make a decision upon, right? It's going to go through multiple hands, and you want to make sure you emphasize important facts. And number 1 is he talks about application, right? It's that a lot of people, when they try to apply, they just throw a resume out there and then hope people are going to find them. And what he suggests, and I suggest to everyone, make sure to apply directly. If you go on the Glassdoor website, right, you will see hundreds of jobs postings, current job posting, and you can go to the site of the company, right? If it's Google, it's going to be Google site for the employment. It doesn't matter. If it's Fitbit, it's Fitbit site. You can go there, and every website of a reputable company or even a small startup have the employment link. You go there and you can find jobs that are currently available. My recommendation, do not go to recruiters, apply directly, go through internal recruiters, go through internal process. It's much, I would say, less bureaucratic, it's much faster to get a real, at least the screening, right? Very, very important. So you want to apply online, and you have to repeat it until success. A lot of people send the resume and apply for the job and they wait and there's nothing and they just give up. And what he says, and I agree with him, you want to apply again. I mean, you want to make sure that people hear from you, because usually internal recruiters are extremely busy. They scan hundreds of resumes and they just by accident can miss you, right? So don't be hesitant to apply once again. Very important. It has a lot of great information. If you read through this post, like learning how to write a killer resume by example, he talks about the important, he makes emphasis on different parts of resume and he puts them in different section, right? Which font to use, right? Where to put what. But the most important thing, obviously, the juice of the resume is what you have done in the past in your previous employment, right? In your previous jobs. And a lot of people, when I said the 99% of resumes that I get are very poor, is because usually this part that you see on the screen right now, right, where I do mouse over, this part is very vague, very general. People are writing like, for instance, if the person worked as the quality engineer, as a tester, they write like, okay, I've been writing test cases, running regression, using the Selenium WebDriver for automation, use XCUITest for automating iOS test. This is nothing. This information tells me nothing about you, right? And he derived the formula, which I agree 150% with, which is actually how to write effective statements. Let me scroll down to this formula. I think it's a little bit down here. Right here is actually making emphasis. In his employment, firmware engineer intern, he said, improve device better lifespan by 8% by integrating a fuel gauge sensor and establishing a battery saving state. If you read this statement, it actually follows the formula that he actually breaks down right here. It is accomplishment, right, as measured by Y by doing Z, right? So basically the objective of this formula that you want to make sure that improve devices better lifespan is an accomplishment. You have to actually state what you've delivered, a value to the company, measured result by 8%, by doing what exactly action you've done to achieve that result, measurable result, integrating a fuel, I'm gonna highlight right here, gauge sensor and establishing a battery saving line. That's the resume I want to see. There are hundreds, there's thousands of people who can do, whatever you know how to do, but only you delivered a value to the company which could be interested for me as a manager, because maybe I have the same objectives. Maybe I need to improve my better life, right, for my hardware that I try to deliver. Okay, very important information. He even shares the words, right? He gives a bank, like word bank of excellent verbs you can and should use, right, as the synonyms for starting your statements, like improve, piloted, optimized, reduced, and he even gives you a phrase formula for different statements. This is so amazing article. Let me give you an example. Like for instance, people said that I worked as an Android automation engineer and I use the Appium, right, or Espresso. It doesn't matter, right? What they usually put in resume, I use Appium framework to automate regression testing for Android. It says nothing. For me, it basically says that, okay, fine, you've done something, but what that means, right? What kind of accomplishment, what kind of achievements have you done? But if you say something like, architect an Android functional test automation framework with Espresso library while using scalable architecture, screen object or robot pattern, such an architecture enabled the entire Android team to write scalable tests with minimum maintainable effort. So when you are actually phrasing your statements in something that actually can bring on the table, or improve test stability by stubbing backend responses with OKHTTP mock web server, isolated tests from the backend, full control of backend responses, ability easier to trigger the test. Or you can say that you improve the test stability by 50% or 30% and increase the speed by 20% if you want a measurable result. So that's what a lot of managers expect in the resume. However, people don't do this. You can open your resume, you can open your LinkedIn profile and see what things you put there, and maybe that's a great opportunity to brush up your resume, because your LinkedIn is identical to your resume. It should be a mirror of your resume, right? You want to make sure when you send your resume, it actually corresponds to your LinkedIn. If there are any discrepancies, people are gonna question you. The recruiters are like, this person doesn't look like, he's actually honest, because he put one information resume and you put one information LinkedIn. And whatever reached the recruiter first, they're gonna look at this, but they're always gonna either ask you for the resume or LinkedIn or both, and they're gonna compare. So make sure that you align these two resources together and make sure that you have this information, intact. Very, very important. Guys, please, ladies and gentlemen, I beg you to follow this blog post and follow this formula. Change your resumes, right? Update your resumes by going by this formula, and you will see tremendous result by increased engagement from recruiters, especially internal recruiters from the company, and that's what you want. Very, very important. Another thing I want to talk today, which is probably gonna be as much important as a resume, is what you talk during the interview. Obviously, nowadays, before even any conversation, people want to see if you can code. Everybody needs to learn how to code, and that's why coding interviews, or we call coding screenings with algorithms, are so important, right? Boris can even tell you that nobody will even talk to you until you go through 15-minute intro problem, right, Boris? Are you there?
Yes, this is the first round and you cannot skip it. And if you want to get an ability to show how good your automation skills are, you have to go through algorithms.
Yeah, regardless, if you are an automation engineer or a software developer engineer, nowadays doesn't matter. You go through the same interview loop and you treat it as equally as an engineer. So for recruitment, you go through the same process. Before people ask me, hey Igor, by the way, if I'm a test engineer, will I get a discount? Nowadays, no. There's no more discounts. You're gonna go through the same engineering interview as an engineer, and because, like I said, right now people want best of the best, and they're best of the best. Most likely, some of them get laid off from the bigger companies, and they're available, and they can get them. So obviously, the bar already went up, right, for the coding interviews. So that's number one thing, and we talked about this. I'm not going to repeat myself. You have to find a time to do it daily on a regular basis until you find a job. The second most important thing, once you pass this coding interview, what's next? Next, you're most likely going to jump on a phone call or on a Zoom meeting with a hiring manager, because you went through what we call filtering. They filter out all the people. They basically want to make sure you're smart or not. You showed your skills, you're smart, good. Now, manager wants to talk to you first before he is gonna waste time of other engineers, right? He want to make sure that you are a team fit for his company, for his team. It could be engineering manager, it could be director. In the smaller companies, it could be even VP or senior director. So what that means, That means you have to make sure you talk in the right terms. And what I mean, I've seen a lot of failures at that stage. And people think like, oh my God, why I failed? Am I like non-technical? No, you're technical. You just said something that actually broke, or changed the mindset of engineering manager or hiring manager about yourself and what it is. And let's talk about those things. So, number one, before you join on a call with engineering manager, read job description. Download the app, use the website if possible. If you are going for the company doing business to business model, try to educate yourself about the company. Even if the company is not public facing, you still can dig the information about the product. At least you can have context for the conversation. If you do not have that context, guess what? If they ask you, hey, by the way, have you ever used our application? You say no. Like, interesting. So why I should hire you? So you want to make sure you study a company in and out before you go in for that phone call. Very, very important. And by the way, just mention something, right? That you are excited about this. So let's say, like, for instance, if we're going to talk about, I don't know, like Tinder, right? You could be married, right? You could have kids, but you said, I'm excited about product. I read an amazing article how to change the landscape of, of relationships with the millennials. Although I am like a different age right now, don't date anymore, but that's amazing concept that, I mean, I wish I could use when I was a younger age. You can say that. It will, definitely please the hiring manager that you're interested in about project. And you can say, for the matter of fact, I downloaded the app, I played with the application, and I was surprised about and start naming about features. Because when you talk about in details about application and make few points, it will please the hiring manager that you know the product, and you as an engineer look at this and maybe have even suggestions. Say, by the way, I think if we change this feature to to left or right, that's going to improve 50% of the user engagement. Boom. This is so important. When I've been on the phone call and asked, hey, by the way, have you ever used Tinder before? I say, no, I'm married. I was like, so what? I'm married too. I have a kid. I'm married too for 10 years. But doesn't mean that you don't have to use the product that you try to go for interview. And people say this, I don't want to talk to this person anymore. It means he's not interested. He finds excuses not to use the product. So why are you even applying, right? Another interesting question that people ask in that conversation is, do you have any questions about the company? And people say no. And this is it. If you say no, most likely you're not going to get a second chance. You want to come prepared. You want to ask them, by the way, what's the size of the team I'm going to work with? How many people, how many iOS, how many Android, how many backend engineers? What kind of team structure do you have? Is it the pod system for, or this is like you work in a Kanban, Agile, whatever. What is the system you're working with? Is the application written natively, or it's a hybrid? What are you guys using for the backend if it's not the secret? I would like to learn. Is it the Google Protocol buffers, or using the open socket? Doesn't matter. You start asking questions. Be prepared. Try to look at their engineering forums. Every company have blog posts nowadays. So they actually talk about their technology stack. Dive into the technology stack. What are you guys using for CI? If not, when you plan to use CI? What kind of test coverage do you have right now? What kind of test automation frameworks do you use right now? You want to bombardier. And then if you ask all this question, the engineering manager will have impression that you're extremely interested in this role. And if you're gonna do poorly, I mean, maybe not so poorly, but so at your interview, following interview with other engineers, he will already put you on top of the list in his mind. And even if you're gonna do, let's say, 4 interviews with other 4 engineers, and 2 of them would be like, I would say, okay, he, as an engineering manager, will weigh his decision. Remember, who is decision maker, right? Usually they have more voice. They're gonna listen to everybody's opinion. And if it's gonna be 50-50, his opinion will win. He's hiring manager, right? Or she. Okay, it's very, very important to be a humble interview and also interested in the conversation about the product. Okay, very important. Another biggest failure I've seen in the interview, when you come to the company doing certain role, for instance, they put in job description that they want you to write client-facing testing, like using, let's say, Espresso for Android. And then during the interview with the hiring manager, or even with the other engineer, you ask the question, what do you think if you will have to write backend testing? Or what do you think if you would have to do performance testing? And you're gonna say, you know what, I didn't sign up for this. I read your job description and I know Espresso. I don't know how to write backend testing, so my answer, no. Guess what? Done. Nobody wants to talk to you anymore. You cannot answer the question in a negative way, even if you don't know this. You can't. Nowadays, you cannot afford this. You have to even positively elaborate on that. Say, hey, John, I didn't, I mean, during the, when I was browsing through the job description, I didn't see this. However, I'm really interested in this. I know my career specifically was last 6 months focusing on Android automation with Espresso, and that's where I'm very proficient in. However, I'm super interested to go to backend. This is my, I would say, not my strongest side, but with my engineering skills, I'm engineer, right? And I'm senior engineer. I would like to brush up the skills, and I would be more than happy to help you guys at that matter. Guess what? You didn't say no. You didn't say that you know this, but you showed an interest to participate in that project. Guess what? There's a very high chance you're never gonna do this. But as the engineering managers, they use the tricks of hiring managers. They use the tricks to see how much you want to learn. Because if they hire mid-level or senior person, they kind of understand that you are there, you are the ceiling, right? You're on top of the industry. But they want to make sure you're humble, you're eager to learn, and you're hungry. Okay, that's why they ask this provocative question. It doesn't mean you will have to do this. They want to make sure you are ready to do this and you want to do this. And if you say no and show no interest into this, they're gonna cross your name right away. And again, I've been a hiring manager, and I actually done consulting before, and I've seen the biggest failures when people said no to when I've been asked to do something else because they didn't feel comfortable about this. Very sad, but that was true. And people thought they did very good in the interview. They answered all the questions, they did all the assignments, and they failed the interview. And when I was asking the hiring manager why the person failed the interview, they said, because when we asked the person how to do this and that, the person said no. I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. And that's, again, I share with my previous experience, okay? And besides technical questions, guys, let's shift the gears towards soft questions, right? And there are also, for the reason, besides your technical abilities, you will have to spend at least 8 hours a day with the other people. And guess what? It's more time than you spend with your loved relatives, your kids, your partners, your wives, or husbands. What that means is that cultural fit is a big thing nowadays. Very big. Because if you're not culturally fit, team will be very uncomfortable to work with you, even if you're rock star in coding. So be prepared to talk about what we call soft skills, right? And people are going to ask you about very interesting questions, sometimes even psychological questions, such as what if you get conflict situation with your coworker? What are you going to do? What if you're going to get a negative feedback from your manager, which means like myself, right? I'm your manager, I'm interviewing right now. What are you going to do about this? And nowadays people ask all these questions, right? What if you have an assignment that you cannot fulfill on time, right? What are you going to do about this? How are you going to act? And nowadays, more and more people asking about these questions. They might even ask you, what's your hobby, right? What do you do after work? They want to make sure that you as the person, your personality fit into the team, because they want to make sure they can communicate with you with a human being, not a robot, right? You're a human being. You want to make sure that you culturally fit in the team. Okay. They may ask you questions about I have a few questions right now on my second monitor that our students from previous classes brought to me, right? For instance, they might like if you've been working in testing industry for a while, they might ask you, how did you get into testing, and what do you like about being a tester? A lot of people get caught off guard because they never thought about this. Like, I mean, I got in testing by accident, right? But what do I like about testing? You have to be prepared for such questions, right? Or like, what are the top 3 skills in resume that you feel the strongest about? And what are 3 that you feel the least confident in? That's a great question. Everybody can talk about their, about the strong sides. They can leverage themselves. They can praise themselves. They have so much pride in themselves because everybody loves what they do the best, but nobody wants to talk about their weak parts. And that's exactly what people want to hear about you. What is actually, you are bad at, and what are you going to do about this, right? And this is very, very important, how to answer to those questions. And a lot of people get like, oh my God, I don't know what to answer. You can always turn the negative things into positive things. And let me give you an example. I'll give you one of the examples because we're limited on time. But for instance, you can say my 3 strongest skills, or you can say my one of the strongest skills is communication, right? Whenever I feel there's a problem, I know how to find key people, how to organize the teams to solve the problem. Communication is my strongest skill. However, probably I would say only something I'm not very confident in is my perfectionism. And these are interesting. What a perfectionism sounds like a good thing. So when you are a perfectionist, means you always try to do work the best you can. However, in a software development, it could be also a negative thing, which played for me a couple times, a negative feedback. For instance, I was working the project, which is supposed to be delivered on time, let's say on June 1st. And because of my perfectionism, I try to do it the best I can, right, with the best quality I can. I was missing by the week. And again, it's not because I didn't want to deliver this, it's because I want to make the best job I can. So what it means, I have to learn how to cut corners and give up some risks, right, to achieve the project on time. So I'm trying to self-discipline myself and try to analyze what I do and pick up the most important crucial points of my job in order to deliver on time and just give up my perfectionism. Boom, right? You said about negative thing, but it sounds like a positive thing. That's what you want to think about those things ahead of time. Very, very important. Again, if you're going to go through every aspect I talked during today's session, I guarantee you will be on top 10% of people in the industry. Let's recap what we talked today. And let's go over the things we talked today. Number 1, obviously we want to follow Mark Price's advice, whom we didn't hear today. but advice is to focus on one thing and one thing. Try to be good at one thing. Don't try to be good at 10 things. There's not a such person exist on the Mother Earth. You have to be really good at something, not everything. Okay. Another thing, we have a course on June 16th in 2 weeks, almost a little bit more than 2 weeks, which is actually, if you need a build portfolio, will help you to build a portfolio for a following interview. If you don't want to attend this course, we have the free videos on our YouTube channel. And then we have a completely free application you can use. If you subscribe to our emailing list, you can get to the source code of this application and build your own presentation, right? You want to build your own portfolio that you come to the interview with. Alternative resources, Headspin University, Test Automation University by Applet Tools, SourceCon, and many more. There's Testing Stage, there is a Test Automation Guild conferences, including the free by Joe Colantonio podcast, which released on weekly basis. In order to write a killer resume, you want to follow this. Amazing. I think this is probably the most valuable resource you can find for writing resumes by Terence Koh. I think this is important. If you would like to learn alternatively, again, any brush up skills, you can use Coding with Mitch. Amazing resource. I think he's Canadian from Canada, amazing guy. And obviously brush up your soft skills by thinking about other aspects of interview besides coding. And as always, solve the algorithms on daily basis and be prepared for the interview. Boris, do you want to add anything besides what I said during today's session?
One thing I wanted to add that I merged already the prime numbers algorithm, so you can find this and all previous algorithms in our repo. Don't forget to check it time to time. And yeah, I don't have anything else.
Great, thank you, Boris. Guys, question to you. Do you have any questions that could have possibly popped out during today's session? Something that you've heard from somebody else in the interview that you were not clear, it was your personal experience during the interview that you would like me to walk through, feel free to type this question right now. I'll be more than happy to answer that. I'll wait for a minute until you're typing. If you have any questions about the process, how to actually nail your next interview. I see a few folks are typing. I'll wait for a few seconds. All right, I can see a few questions popped up, and the third and fourth are coming. What a level of coding skills knowledge of algorithm is usually expected from automation QA engineers? I think I mentioned this, but I'm going to repeat myself one more time. Sergey, the answer to a question is as high as for developers. Before, there used to be more easier ones. Now, nowadays, especially for reputable companies, for bigger companies, is exactly the same as for developers. You're not going to see any discount. And more than that's why Boris goes above and beyond. He shows you the 8 pillars, right? The 8 steps that you want to basically carve in stone, or put it, like, write it down, put it in your fridge, on your computer, on your mirror, anywhere. And that's exactly how you want to ask the questions during interview. Remember, even if the problem is very complicated, sometimes they don't expect you to finish it on time, but at least you can pseudocode, walk through the solution. So people at least can understand you understand the problem and can spell out the solution. But the answer to your question, I don't think there is no more difference. QA engineer as equal as the software engineer because of the levels and salaries are equal. Nowadays, you're gonna get the same treatment. Again, varies company to company. If it's small shop, obviously it will be easier. If it's a bigger shop like Google, be prepared to get hammered. Ashwarya, are the coding rounds the difficulty level the same for the devs and QA? Exactly the same questions above. Yes, it is nowadays for the most part the same. However, what Boris is showing you, again, we're still at the warm-up stage, guys. We're still at the stage of beginners easy level on the elite code. I think starting next week, Boris will start transition in a direction of a real company's interviews. We haven't touched the what I call juicy problems from Apple, from Google. We're gonna also discover them, but you have to be prepared. We cannot jump you on the middle, in the middle of the ocean without the life vest. So we are preparing for you for those problems. I think as of today, we have enough information to continue with this course for another year easily, if not more. That's why we're just at the beginning of the journey. And if you want to be prepared to interview, you have to go for at least intermediate level, right, Boris?
Yes, absolutely.
At least intermediate. We are still in the beginner's level. Stella, does it really matter what language you use in technical coding challenge? Doesn't matter. You can use Python, you can use Ruby, you can use Java, whatever you want. The reason Boris shows the solutions in Java, and by the way, we have one of our students already contributing, to the another repository where she converts Boris's solutions from this class into Swift. And once we have enough solutions there, we will share that with you even maybe on the following week. So if you want to see the solution in other languages, and you can do it on your own. You can create your own repo and port Boris's solution from the Java into whatever language you like. During interview, it doesn't matter. They will tell you use whatever language you're comfortable with.
But we recommend you to do that because it's just an additional practice for you. It will give you more, it will just give you a confidence during the interview.
Yep. So again, it doesn't matter what programming language as long as you can present the right solution. All right, next question. Do you think most companies will do Zoom team group interviews now where the multiple people interview one candidate? Due to the COVID-19, yes. I think it will be more Zoom or WebEx or any other video chat platform. I think that's going to become the norm, which is, I think, even better. To me, I feel more stressful where I'm in the room and I have five people looking at me. You get more like energy in the room. When you do Zoom, obviously, you feel, because you're at home, you can have 3-4 monitors. You can create cheat sheets, right? You can actually create an environment to be more proficient. So I feel more comfortable at Zoom than actually on the whiteboard. That's my personal opinion. So yes, I think we're gonna go towards Zoom for a long time, at least until end of the year. I think so, but we don't know, right? We can only guess. Where to find list of questions to ask during interview and not fail on, maybe come link. Natalie, I think I get your question. So the answer to your question is you can, first of all, Google. You can Google for a lot of interview questions. You can watch the video that we recorded there. I think I gave the most tips and tricks for as far as I remember, in the most comprehensive way. I went through all the most important parts of the interview aspect. If you're gonna follow them, you will be fine. You cannot prepare to all questions. It's impossible. I think, again, I'm gonna emphasize once again, and I'm gonna do it again and again. You want to develop your strongest skill. not the weakest. Okay, so let me give you an example. If you for the past 6 months or a year or maybe 5 years were focusing on the web, and you are like super proficient as, let's say, web developer, you know JavaScript, you know pretty much all the all the most fashionable frameworks, and for the past 2 years you work with React. So guess what? Now you see a lot of interviews asking you to know Android or iOS. I'm not recommending you to go right now and learn iOS. What I recommend you is to go from one level in the web development to the next level and become even more senior, learn more, present more what you can, bring on the table as a web engineer. Don't try to develop something you are not good at. Try to develop something you're good at. And this is very important aspect of the success. And when you come to the interview, you present yourself as the top, right? Top specialist in that industry. Okay, very important aspect. Are there coding rounds for the QA manager also? Yes, very good question, Kenny. Thank you for asking. Managers are not an exception anymore. Every manager that goes through interview right now asks to code as well. It's going to be what the difference is. Managers usually do not get the assessments. What is assessment? Boris, you want to go through the assessment at Tinder?
You mean assessment?
I mean, building app.
Yeah, of course. So it doesn't really matter what app you will be given with. You mean for software developer, right?
Yeah, for software developer, yes.
So let's just start from begin. If you are interviewed as a software developer, the first round is again coding challenge, right? So no jobs. You will be given with a bunch of algorithms, and there will be some screen sharing session. But the next level interview is basically you are given with like 3-4 hours, and you just need to build an app. So you can use whatever you want. You can Google things. You can ask questions. You just need to do your job. You need to build an app and show the best you can. You need to show the best architecture. You need to show the best knowledge of frameworks. You need to show the best knowledge of the programming language, the primary programming language you're going to use on your job. Here's where the programming language starts to matter, actually, because as Igor mentioned, it's absolutely no, there is no any difference which programming language are you going to use on the coding challenge, but on the app you should use whatever you will use on the real work. So you're given with some simple idea app that is possible to do for 3-4 hours, because obviously you're not going to build Tinder or Instagram or Facebook, right? So some small app with a network session with maybe core data if it's iOS, or any database if it's Android, with some backend integration and so on and so forth. So basically it's just your time to show what you know, to show what you can. And there are little requirements here. So it depends on you. How much do you want to show? That's it.
Thank you, Boris. Even for testers, nowadays there are assessments. Assessments, it could be like you come to the interview, let's say on Zoom, and right in real time, they're going to give you a link to the GitHub repository with the, let's say, with application, and they give you 2 hours to build the app. And during these 2 hours, there will be few people in the room or, come interchangeably and talk to you about this. Like, hey, where are you at? Do you need any help? On the web, I actually have done this myself a few years ago, and it's an amazing experience. They might give you a website and give you 5 test cases to automate using the Selenium WebDriver. Whatever, you can use Java, Ruby, doesn't matter. You have to code it, and while you're coding, You actually do a screen share, and people ask you questions, like, for instance, why you do this way? They want to see, like, are you gonna just do fast-handed without any architecture, or you want to start with architecture? And then you can talk things out. They say, hey, by the way, because of the time constraint, I'm not gonna use, like, for instance, this architecture, but I'm gonna talk you through my kind of you know, suggestions and opinion. How would you improve it? So very more and more common, you're going to see the such assessments for the testing. I've seen it a lot, and that's actually what I like to do, because I know the stuff you've been doing. If I give you the real time, like 3-hour project, and see how you collaborate with my team during the project, then I'll find out how you work with people. If the person comes to you and say, hey, Boris, do you need any help? You say, no, it's a red flag. I mean, I want you to talk to me. I was like, usually people have questions. And I mean, you will have questions. Like, for instance, you can say, hey, by the way, I read description of this test case. Let me clarify. Is this the right expected result? Is it what you want to see from me? And obviously, the interviewer want to engage in conversation. At the end of the day, it will be your coworker. So you want to make sure you talk to these people and talk to them all the time. Make sure you engaged in the process. And trust me, if you get stumbled, they're willing to help you, right? They're willing to help you. It's not that you have to do the whole problem by yourself. They just want to see how you're going to work in the real work environment. Very important. Okay. Any other questions? Great. If there are no more questions, I think I shared all the links. If I didn't, please remind me. I'll share more. I see Irina typing. Okay, I'm gonna take last question, and we are right in an hour and a half time frame. Irina said no. Okay, perfect. Again, we would like to thank each of you individually for joining us on Sunday. I know it's tough times to join Sunday. Most of you have families and other obligations. So me and on behalf of the Boris, would like to thank you guys for staying with us. We truly hope today's session was helpful. And on the bottom of my heart, I wish all of you to, if you're job hunting right now, to find your desired job. And we are here to serve you guys as a community, to help you out to be very successful. Next week, same time, 11 a.m., we are waiting to see you online with us. And we're gonna keep cracking the interview algorithms, and hopefully one day you're gonna love them. All right, guys, thank you so much, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for attention. See you.